Let's get going. I'm happy to have everyone here today. Welcome to today's Nifty Method webinar. We're so excited you could join us, and we're excited to also welcome back Tracy Timm. And she's going to help us learn a little bit more about a lot of things, actually. Tracy's got a lot of news to share, some exciting things coming up that she's working on, in addition to how to discover, define, and drive towards our dream career and dream goals.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you didn't have a chance to type into the chat where you are calling in from and you are wanting to share that with the group, please feel free and comfortable to do that. We are small but mighty today. And I decided at the last minute, this is very much my personality, that I was going to shake things up. I had this whole presentation planned. And then I thought, you know what? This group, I think we can go deep with. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with. And what I really want to do today is peel back a bit of the process that even I go through on sometimes a more than annual basis, depending on, hey, when we have a global pandemic or something crazy happens, on how to get myself back on track and how to get extreme clarity so that no matter where I am in my life and no matter what's happening out in the world, I can still find my next best fit career. I can still lead my business and my career and my life in a positive direction, no matter what's going on in the world. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys today because I recently employed Nifty Method to be my new agency, and I'm so happy to do that because the founder and CEO is a dear friend of mine, but she's also brilliant and has a brilliant staff. And together we are rebranding the entirety of what I do under the category and name and brand called Thrivist. I'm a huge nerd. You guys will come to know that very quickly. I also talk very fast. So if you have questions along the way, please make sure you're putting them into the Q&A. And then along the way, I am going to have some opportunities for you guys to hop into the chat and answer some specific questions. Not a whole ton, but I love to keep you guys engaged. So the reason that I brought up that I'm a huge nerd is because the word thrivist is really specific and meaningful to me. When I think of thriving, I think of growing and flourishing and living to the fullest extent. But the term ist, the suffix, if you will, ist, actually literally translates to one who does. So an artist is one who does art, right? A geologist is one who practices or studies geology. So a thrivist is literally one who thrives. And this is what we're starting to move forward with in my business is it's no longer about getting out of a job you hate. It's no longer about not feeling undervalued. It's taking you from wherever you are right now to actually thriving in your life and thriving in your career because you're either thriving or you're not. And that's the truth of it. So a while back, actually just a couple months ago, I was on this really incredible podcast. If you have a chance to go listen to this podcast, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best interviews I've ever done. It's called How to Be Awesome at Your Job with Pete Mokitis. I was episode clearly number 608. He's very prolific. And the number one quote that he pulled out of my episode that I was a little shocked by because I said it so early and we talked about so many other things that were really meaningful was he or she with the most clarity in times of uncertainty wins. He or she with the most clarity wins in times of major uncertainty. That's exactly what came out of my mouth. And it's true. I was finding at the time, this was last September, that all of our clients who were going through major transitions were forced into them, were doing them because they were timely or even more timely than they were timeless and timelessly important. They were succeeding because of their extreme levels of clarity, because we've all gone through some pretty messy stuff over the last year. I'm not going to belabor that. Everybody knows that we've been in this for a year, and the world changed very quickly for a lot of us. And what I think it made the majority of us do, and if this happened to you, I want you to type yes into the chat, is it took you out of your routine. It took you out of your comfort zone. It almost just put like a big stop sign right in front of wherever we were all going and said, hey, are you where you want to be? For many people, this was, yes, right? For many of us, this was the first time, maybe ever, but certainly in a long time, where you were abruptly taken out of your routine. Your day-to-day life was very quickly changed, and you're left asking yourself, do I really want this, or do I want something else? Right? In a very positive way, Kate. I love that, right? It's an opportunity to take a step back and realize that there's a significant difference between surviving and thriving. There is a very significant difference in our lives when we are getting through the day, when we're getting by, when we're getting through our job, when we're just making it and making it work, and when we're showing up as the best version of ourselves, when we're actually exploring and learning and creating and becoming better versions of ourselves because we're in a place where we can thrive. And this just became so important to me that I saw this very clear connection between surviving and thriving and thinking you have clarity versus actually having clarity, right? Thinking you're on the right path for you versus knowing the who, the what, the when, the where, the why of your ideal career. So if you guys are here today because you want to progress, meaning you want to move forward, you want to grow, you want to become the next best version of yourself, I truly believe that the best way for us to accomplish that together is through extreme career clarity. And we cannot wait. The important thing is that the stakes are incredibly high for us. And I think this was another thing that the pandemic did, especially for me and especially for the clients that we worked with here at Thrivist, was we realized that we've been waiting around for some of these answers, but they might not be coming unless we are willing to take a step out of our comfort zone and look very clearly and objectively at where we are right now. The stakes are extremely high. If you look at the statistics, and you guys will not believe this, but it's fascinating. If you look at the statistics, people who love what they do versus even people who like what they do, simply people who report loving what they do versus liking what they do, make 2 times the amount of wealth. 2 times the amount of wealth. We think that we live in this society where you have to have income or impact, but the data shows us that the more we love our job and the more we are thriving in our career, the more money we have the opportunity to actually make. And here's the kicker. The data also shows that time is on the line because people who love their job versus reporting simply even liking their job not only make 2 times the amount of money, but they do it in 1/3 the amount of time. 1/3 the amount of time. So instead of waiting for 20 or 30 years to start making what you feel like you're worth, they do it in an average of 10 to 12, which is just startling and alarming to me because when I read those statistics, frankly, I never saw a better argument for finding work you love and pouring yourself into it. Because if you want to succeed at the highest level quickly, the best way to do that is to find something you can't not do, right? It's to find a place in the world where you thrive. Because the biggest thing that's on the line is our life. It's our lives. It's our one existence here where we get to either have an impact or not. We get to thrive or just survive. We get to leave a mark or potentially not. And that is maybe even the most important thing to me and the highest stake is that the people we work with best are the ones seeking purpose and seeking impact and wanting to do more than just get through the day, get through their job, make some money, and move along with life. Right? These are the stakes. So today, what I'm going to show you is a step-by-step process. This is not like a quick fix scheme, wave a magic wand, yada, 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 right? This is a tried and true process that requires commitment. It requires effort. But what it is not is just sort of poof, Mary Poppinsing and giving you the answer. Mary Poppins? No, more like Cinderella, right? I can't just sort of wave a magic wand and tell you this is your dream job and go do it and then you're just succeeding tomorrow. What I can do is teach you a way that no matter what is happening in your life, and frankly, no matter what is happening in the world, that you can make the best next decision for yourself. So this is the proverb, right? Give a man to fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. What I'm going to teach you guys today is a replicable process, meaning if you are in a place right now where you're not happy, and not just not happy, but not thriving, right? You're not experiencing the other side of the pendulum, which is not just not miserable, but thriving and feeling great and feeling like you're tapping into your purpose and your potential. I'm going to teach you a process today that works no matter what is going on in your life and no matter what is going on in the world, all the things that we can and frankly cannot control. The reason that I do this work and the way that I figured out this process was through a lot of personal struggle and work, and then through a lot of testing. So what I did was out of college, I had a psychology degree from Yale. which I loved studying and I loved going to, but I had no idea how I wanted to apply it. Raise your hand or type yes into the chat if you got a degree in something and then we're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. My favorite is a story from a guy from SMU who majored in pottery. And I was like, good luck. I don't know what we're going to do with that. And I didn't know what to do with my degree in psychology either because I didn't want to practice. I really just loved learning about people. And then I loved teaching and sharing. But at 22, I didn't know what I was going to do with that. So I ended up taking a job on Wall Street. It was a pretty obvious place to go coming from Yale. It was like Wall Street or consulting. And so that was my first job. I had probably what most people would consider was a socially successful career. It looked great on paper. I made great money, but I was abjectly miserable. I did that for 2.5 years and basically ended up as a shell of myself. So I decided to quit, which is a long process. So we can get into that in the Q&A. If you're in a place where you're wondering if it's time to quit, I can certainly help you answer that question. It was time for me to quit. So I quit and I spent 2 years, the next 2 years of my life, finding my own career clarity, discovering who I was, getting re-inspired. I dabbled back in going back to school. I went on a semester at sea. I traveled. I tried different jobs. And I finally figured out the magic combination that allowed me to get closer to unleashing my potential. And when I look back, I realized that those steps didn't necessarily need to take 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars. We could actually do them a lot faster. We could do them a lot more cleanly, meaning we didn't have to waste time, right? We didn't have to waste money. So what I started doing was working with high potential professionals, and I recreated the process that I went through with each of them. And as I did that with each individual, it got better and better and better and tighter and tighter and tighter. So that now today, what we teach is the most effective and the most efficient possible. Along the way, I also got to work with companies and actually go in and see what made somebody an employee, like what made somebody just somebody who's on the timesheet and we pay them, but like we're not really sure if we can justify their salary, versus someone who's an asset, someone who we cannot do business without. What's that differentiator? And what it is clarity and thriving. So I went back to my individual clients and said, hey, this is what's working for these people in these companies. Let's see if we can borrow some of that information. And what came out of that was this very specific formula and framework. Internally here at Thrivist, we call it our recipe for career clarity, our recipe for thriving. And it's something that, like I said, is tried and true and you can use over and over and over again, no matter what is going on in your life and what is going on in the world. The cool thing is this is a system. It's a step-by-step process. So you don't have to know what you're doing when you get into it. You just have to follow the steps. And they are proven. I've proven them over the last 7 years of being in business. And what these steps allow us to do is look beyond what's not working, look beyond the symptoms, if you will, and give you a clear path forward so you have more confidence, so you have more certainty. And so you can discover and define a career that you love that also pays you back in more ways than one. So yes, money, but also in freedom and fulfillment, and all those juicy things that you want to be feeling when you're thriving. So this is our contextual model, right? So here at Thrivist, this is our model. It's trademarked, it's proven, it's called the nth degree. And it's our 7-step process for career clarity. So what you can see here is that the model is a circle. That's because it's evolutionary. We always start with now, we always finish with nourish, and then we start over whenever we do it again. That means whenever something in your life is changing. That means whenever something in the world is changing and you need to get back to the basics. We always start with now. But you can see that the model's broken up not only into 7 steps that all start with N, but into 3 categories, 3 phases that all start with D. They're called discover, define, and drive. The reason that these phases are important is because what most of us do is we don't start with the basics. We always jump to drive, right? All of you guys are go-getters, self-starters. I know you. I know you're smart. I know you want the tactics. I know you want the answers. So we don't go back to the basics of who I am and what do I care about and what's my genius zone. We jump to updating your resume and trolling job boards and hounding LinkedIn and looking for recruiters and networking and having conversations before we even know what we're looking for. And this is the masterful piece of this process, that if we start at discover, we start with actually truly getting down to what your value is as a professional. And then we move on to define, which is pulling all of your puzzle pieces together to define a unique genius zone. Then driving your career forward becomes so much easier, and so much more effective. So what I'm going to show you today are two things. I'm going to show you the steps to discover and define your ideal career. We're not going to talk about drive today. So if you were here to learn networking strategies, if you want to know how to do a resume better, if you need your LinkedIn updated, we can do all that stuff. That is not what we're going to focus on here today. But if you stick around with me till the end, I have a couple freebies to give away to you guys. One that I think you're really going to like, especially if you're in this place where you're trying to figure all this out. So stick around. You're going to get a bunch of great nuggets. But if you're here to learn the basics to discover and define your career, you're in the right place. But we're going to start, additionally, after I tell you what these steps are, we're going to start by drilling down and getting laser focus into step one. So if you don't have a notepad, or you're taking notes on your computer, you're taking notes on your phone, or you're at your job and you're surreptitiously trying to look like you're not watching a webinar, I get you. I love you for it. Take notes, because I'm going to go really fast through these steps, and I want you to know what you're getting into and know what you can do after this webinar to apply this information. And then I'm also going to be showing you my examples along the way. So I need at least one person, because we're in this as a team. I need at least one person to type yes into the chat. Yes, I'm excited to see these steps. Yes, Tracy, I'm here. I'm in the right place. Yes, Sydney, my girl. Thank you. I love you guys. I'm a huge cheese ball in addition to being a big nerd. So I appreciate you guys, letting me do this. All right. All right, so let's talk about these first steps in the discover phase. So remember, we're only talking about the discover phase right now. This is discovering who you are deep down and what types of fit you were made for in a job. Okay, so step number one, we call now. I always believe that starting with now, no matter how much clarity you think you have, starting with now gives you a rock solid foundation for the rest of the process. Because our now, meaning our values, our vision, our commitments, our life circumstances, just where you are, what phase of life you're in, that dictates who you are at this moment in time, which is going to help you see how you are a quote unquote culture fit within a business, or you're starting your own business, or within a job, or within a role, right? Any company, any organization. If your values don't match that culture's values, or that company's mission or vision-based values, then from the outset, you are going to be out of alignment with the work that you're doing. This is just true. I had a great, incredible client named Patrick. His testimonial is online if you want to go watch it. Patrick McDonough is his name. And he was like, listen, I could be doing the ideal job. He's an engineer. And he's like, I could be doing exactly what I want with the right team, with this amazing support, making great money. But if I'm making bullets, for instance, that is not a fit for me. That's not a values fit. It's never going to work. I'm not going to be passionate about my work. It just doesn't suit my values. That culture doesn't fit me. So great. That means that from the outset, he knows that these are the types of companies I'm going to want to work for, and these are the types of cultures I'm going to want to be in. And this now piece is what we're going to start with today. But I didn't want to leave you hanging. I wanted to let you know the other steps. That way you know where to go once you've discovered your now. The second piece of the puzzle we call nature. So nature is it's who we are. It's our personality. It's our behaviors, our gifts. It's our strengths. If you're a Strengths Finder fan, I'm a huge one. I'm a woo activator, maximizer, communication, connectedness girl, which is why I talk really fast and why I can't stop smiling all the time. So nature translates into our behavioral fit, meaning if we can harness our personality and our behaviors and our gifts, that's how we can know the ideal environment for those behaviors. So that if we put ourselves into a particular job, a particular environment, we can actually set ourselves up for success by knowing that ideal environment in advance. So for instance, Tracy Timm was not made for a manufacturing environment or a plant environment. That would literally be like putting a bull in a china shop and saying, go make stuff, right? It will not work. I have no detail orientation. I don't like tedious things. I get bored really easily with routine stuff. I need a lot of creativity. I'm an athlete, so I need to move around a lot. It's just not a good behavioral fit. It doesn't matter if I'm philosophically aligned. It doesn't matter if I love the people. It doesn't matter if the company culture is great. It doesn't matter if I'm even good at the job. What matters is that it's not a behavioral fit for my personality, for my gifts. So if I want to set myself up for success, then I'm going to avoid those types of environments. So that's the second type of fit. The third type of fit we like to call nurture, because in psychology, what do they teach us, right? Everything either comes from nature or nurture. In fact, there was an entire class in college called nature versus nurture. And I just knew the entire semester was going to be, well, it's some of both. And so I ended up not taking that class. But nurture is where we get your skills. It's where we get your knowledge. It's where we get your expertise. It's where we get every piece of you that didn't come naturally. Everything that you've learned or earned over time comes from your nurture. And this is how we describe your job fit. It's how we figure out what roles and responsibilities that you should have and where you should be working in that business. It's how we figure out if you need to have coworkers or not, or if you're a subject matter expert or not, or what's going to make you feel confident in a role. So if we have culture fit and we have behavioral fit and we have job fit and we pool all those things together, that's how we get to define. That's how we get to this phase down here where we define your niche, your unique genius zone, okay, your sweet spot. So imagine, right? We're adding now plus nature, what you were born to do. We're adding now plus nurture, what you were bred to do. And then we're adding nature plus nurture, meaning what you were built to do. And if you're missing any one of these things, you're missing a core component of what makes you unique and a core component that you could be layering on top of to set yourself apart as a unique asset. Okay. It literally looks a little bit like this. We're going to add now, we're going to add nature, we're going to add nurture, and that's going to be your niche. This is how you thrive. This is the nth degree process. But today, what we're going to focus on is just step one, which is now, because I believe that extreme clarity begins where you are today. If you don't have clarity on where you are right now, it's almost impossible to frame where you want to go. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk through my 4 favorite steps. We're going to do 5 minutes on each of these. Take notes because I'm going to go fast. We're not going to actually do the exercises, but I'm going to show you how to do them. And I'm going to show you examples from my own life, ones that I literally did this back in January, February, figuring out my own values, auditing my life, all the things I'm going to walk you through so that you're not alone, okay? And you're not in the dark. You know exactly what this can look like and you know exactly the outcomes that you're looking for, okay? So ready to rock and roll. Remember, this is what we're doing today, just the now phase. And we're going to talk through the 4 steps in the now phase that can give you a really solid foundation of clarity to move your career forward and to feel like you're more in your best fit career and thriving rather than just getting through your job every single day. Alrighty. Oh, thank you, ladies, for sharing your strengths. I love that. Okay. I have multiple screens going on here, so I appreciate y'all. Okay. So these are the 4 major exercises to discover your now. Step 1 is something that we call a life audit. It's taking a global look at where you are right now, getting really objective about what's working and not working, and then moving forward with that information. Step number 2 is going to be going deck level on your core values, figuring out not yesterday or 10 years ago or tomorrow or 10 years from now, but today in your life, in this phase of life, what really matters to you. Then we're going to use that information to craft a vision. If everything were going really well in my life, what would that look like? What is that vision that I have for myself, my family, my career, my legacy even, right? You can go that deep with it so that we can backtrack and make commitments that are going to get us to that vision. And it's these commitments that this is the final step. The commitments are what become your foundation for your best fit career because they are crystal clear, right? They come from your audit, they come from your values, they come from your vision, and they should define the bare minimum things that you need to commit to in your life to get where you want to go. Okay. So onward and upward. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is a life audit. I was on a walk with a Harvard Business School grad the other day, and he was talking about some conversation he and his wife had. And he was like, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Barbara, what are you talking about? And I was like, did you really say that to your wife? So I added it into my presentation because I thought it was the funniest thing I ever heard. A life audit is a moment in time where you step back and you look objectively at what's going on in your life across all of the major categories. So we're not just going to look at career because career is just one part of a life. Okay. It's a big part, especially here in America, where we spend a lot of our time working, spend about as much time working as we do sleeping, which is about 1/3 of our life, relatively speaking. Well, depending on how much you sleep. But the reason that a life audit is so important is because it allows you to take the time to evaluate your unique set of circumstances. And what this does is set a frame, a point in time that honors where you are today. A 25-year-old who doesn't even own a goldfish is going to have a lot of different circumstances than a 45-year-old with 2 kids and a house and aging parents and 3 dogs and a mortgage and whatever else is going on in their life, right? And neither of those is better or worse, but they are different. So we do want to honor where you are. So we're living in reality. And when we're making steps forward, we're doing that from a place of clarity, because this allows us to go deeper. Again, right? You can look at your career and look at your life and say, this just isn't working. But to really know why, to really know what's not working and see why you feel the way you do, can only come from an objective audit of everything that's going on in your life. Because when you know what matters to you, when you know the root cause of what's really going on, then your decisions become easier, right? You feel less stressed. You feel more focused and clear on knowing exactly what's not working because you've diagnosed where the problem is coming from. And this leads to a much more authentic step forward. So now you're not just having informational interviews to have them. You know exactly what you want and you know what you're going to say. So if you're taking notes, this is the time to get out your pen or pencil. This is how I do a life audit exercise. Okay. So step 1, I think there are about 8 core areas of our lives. I categorize them as this: social, meaning people; emotional, meaning mental; physical, meaning obviously physical, your body; spiritual, if you have any religious or spiritual practices; financial, how's money doing in your life; professional, that's our career life; intellectual is how we're stimulated; and environmental is what's surrounding us right now, environment wise. Okay. Those are the 8 core areas of our life. What I like to do is put them in a spreadsheet. I'll show you the spreadsheet here in a second so you get an idea of what it looks like. And then I like to break this up into 3 sections. And these are the 3 sections. It's what's going well, right? What's working? And then what could improve? And I don't like to say what's going wrong. I just like to say this isn't working, or, what could be going better? And then there's neutral stuff, like things that are just true. They're not bad. They're not good. They're not better or worse. They're just true. And they're just part of your circumstances in life right now. They're part of your reality. Then you want to set a timer. I strongly recommend you set a timer because exercises will lengthen to the time we allow them. I learned in college, if you wait till the last minute, it only takes a minute, but you also only have a minute. So set yourself a timer for 5 minutes per area for each of these core areas. And you want to just dump everything out of your head. Then after you're done with that, you want to take a break, walk away from it. Just give it some time to marinate, to rest. Maybe you want to sleep on these ideas. And then you want to come back to it and ask yourself, what are the 5 foundational components of my life right now that are going the best? Where do I draw energy from? Where do I get support from? Who is in my life that's indispensable? What are the pieces that are really working? Because what you might find is, okay, career wholesale, not where you want it to be, and that's fine. But maybe you have an excellent spiritual practice that holds you up. Maybe you have an incredible social support system right now. Maybe you have a really strong mental and physical life, so you've built up that muscle of grit and resilience over time. So not all is lost, but we need to get objective about what we do have so we can appreciate it and be grateful for it and use it as our foundation to move forward. So what I'm going to do is show you guys my life audit. Yes, I told you, open kimono today. So hopefully you can see this. It is going to be rather small for some, well, maybe you can't see it. Can somebody confirm to me that you can see a spreadsheet? Just type yes into the chat. Would be a lovely, lovely confirmation that you can see a spreadsheet on your screen. I think you can. Now I can't see the chat. Where's my chat box? There we go.
Tracy. Yeah, everyone can see it, I think.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So this is my life audit. Literally, like I said, what's going well, what could improve, what's neutral, and then across the top, social, emotional, physical, spiritual. And then you just get really honest with yourself. So what's going well in your life? I happen to be really close with my mom, and she lives only 45 minutes away, and I'm an only child, and we love each other, and we have a lot of fun together. We're very Bobsy twin sisters. It's very strange, but we hang out a lot, and I love that. It's a great thing to have in my life that I know she didn't have growing up. She lost her mom very early. I'm very grateful to have her. I love this office space that I'm working out of. I just moved here in September. I'm meeting new people here. My relationship with the staff is great. I feel like I have a place to go every day. I have 2 bars that sometimes overserve, but they're wonderful. One that I go to for trivia on a very frequent occasion. The other one I usually go to brunch to, usually with my mom. And we know the staff, and we know the owners, and we know the bartenders. And it's just like, it feels like going home. Feels like Cheers, right? Everybody knows your name, right? I have friends friends who I can go really deep with and share. But there are some things in my life that I'd love to be going better. I am single. I would love to not be. If you guys know any eligible Catholic men out there, I am happy to meet them. And I'm such a social person. So COVID has been rough, right? For all you people out there who are, just like me and are dyed in the wool extroverts and just are not happy at home, I feel you. It's a downward spiral to spend more and more time alone, because when I'm around people, I'm up. I just told Levi before we got started today, I had my very first in real life chat last week, and it felt like I came back to life in a really powerful way. So there are some things not going perfectly in my social life, but there are some things I really appreciate. So that's exactly what I did in each of these core areas. Then, as I recommend, I slept on it and I came back and said, okay, what are the top 5? What's going really, really well? And these are the top 5. I have an incredible, loving, and supportive relationship with my mom. She's my rock. She's amazing. She actually is working for me right now, which is also a blessing, but also, as you guys know, with children or parents, well, all of you have parents, but not all of you have children. You know, working with your mom can be a challenge, but it's incredible. And we support one another. So then I also have this sense of freedom. I'm not tied down by anything in my life. And that kind of feels good. It gives me energy. It gives me the sense of hopefulness. It gives me the sense of I could do whatever I want. I could be whatever I want. So I have these great things at my foundation, at my disposal. And that's what keeps me going right now. Like, I didn't wake up in January really happy, as many of you might not feel, right? I felt a little unmotivated, a little inspired, tired of staying at home, tired of not being able to travel. But these were the things that I had at my disposal that gave me a core foundation. They helped me feel good, even though some things in my life weren't going great, or some things in the world weren't going great, right? But if you know what's driving you through, then you can use that to your advantage. So we're going to go back to the slides here, I believe. There we go. Killing it with the tech today, everybody. Okay. So we talked about life audit. Step number 2 is going to be a core values exercise. And then remember, we're going to follow that up with our visioning. And then we're also going to follow that up with commitments. But core values, I am so passionate about. I think this is probably one of the most powerful things that you can do when you're in a moment of uncertainty and to gain more clarity, is to get crystal clear on your core values. Now, you may be asking yourself, aren't core values for companies? Isn't this a thing that people put on their websites to like attract young people, yada, yada, yada. If you have never done core values for yourself, I invite you to step out of your comfort zone today, because that's why you're on this webinar, and challenge yourself about the value and importance of doing this really core exercise. Here's the deal, and this is why core values are so important. We are always choosing. Every decision that we make in life, every decision you make in your life, speaks to that which you value or that which you don't. And the question you want to ask yourself today is, what are my decisions saying? What are my decisions saying? If you had to compare your choices, and let's just say your career choices, because we're focusing on best fit career crystal clarity today. If you were to compare the choices you've made in your career and the actions that you've taken up to today with what you say you value, how would they align? Have you said in the past that your family is really important, but they never come first? Your career does? Because that happens. Have you said in the past that your integrity is unimpeachable, but if your career asks you to like be a little under the table about something, you might do it to save your job? It happens. Of all, like, I worked on Wall Street. I get it. I saw things, I did things that I'm not proud of. And I look back and ask myself, was that the right thing for me to do, or did it bring me out of alignment? And the answer was, it brought me out of alignment. And here's the hard truth. And this is the hardest truth I'm going to give you today. Even if you feel like you have no choice, you do. We have a choice in every scenario. And if you're shaking your head, you're going, Tracy, you don't know my situation, right? You don't know me. You don't know that I have choices. I know you have choices, because we always get to choose. We may not always have the set of choices we wish we had, but we can always choose our values over someone else's values if they don't align. We can always choose our values if we want to live a life and a career that is thriving, that is sustainable, that is successful in the long run. The people who do that well are the people who create careers that align with their values and do not compromise the non-negotiables. They do not compromise the non-negotiables. Period. You may not feel, again, this is the hard part. I'm living this every day and asking myself how to do it better. I'm not perfect, so I'm not preaching. I'm just saying that if this is the first time that you've thought about this, I want you to know that you are not without choices. The best way that we can stick to these choices is by setting our values in advance of making those decisions. Because if we don't, right, if we don't set our values in advance, then what do we fall prey to? The emotions of the moment, the pressure of the moment, the people around us, the thing we feel like we have to do or we're compelled to do. But if we know our values in advance, we know without question and with clarity what we stand for in the world, then we simplify the decision-making process, right? Because if I know my values and I'm looking at a choice, I can just run it by those values and say, self, does this even align with value number one? If that's a no, then it probably doesn't align with many of the other values. So it probably doesn't have merit. Now, sometimes we're going to be forced into those decisions. But what I'm telling you today is if you want a sustainably successful career where you are thriving, the best way to do that is align who you are, your values, with the work that you do every single day. You get to show up as yourself, you get to show up driven by your values, and you exponentially increase your chance for long-term success. So not just a job you can get through tomorrow, but a job you can love for a long time, a career you can feel proud of, right? A career you can share with other people. So if you're taking notes, here are my 5-step core value discovery process. I like to call this process the 10-20-30 core values process. That's because it takes 1 hour and I split it up into 10, 20, and 30-minute chunks, okay? So first thing you're going to do is a 10-minute, remember, set a timer, 10-minute brain dump of everything that matters. And this is literally without judging it. So just whatever comes to mind. It doesn't have to be a pretty value or a word that you think is virtuous. Whatever you value, write it down. The first time I did this, the very first time, I wrote down warm kitten cuddles and I wrote down like crocheting because it was something fun to do with my hands and I love the color and whatever. And those were things I loved. They didn't necessarily represent a value to someone else, but I knew what they meant, right? I knew what the value was underlying those things. So don't judge it, just get it out of your head. Because the second step you're going to take is consulting a list of core values for deeper inspiration. So I literally like to go to corevalueslist.com, simplest thing in the world, corevalueslist.com. There are like 550 words there. And for 20 minutes, right? So the first step was 10, the step was 20. For 20 minutes, you go super deep into this list and you circle or highlight every single thing that just jumps out at you and is inspiring and resonates, okay? Then for the latter 30 minutes of the hour, you're going to start grouping values into categories. Because what you're going to find is you probably have 50, 100, 150 words at this point. So you want to group them down until you reach 10 or less. Okay. If you have more than 10, you have way too many cooks in the kitchen. Having more than 10 core values has never served me. And trust me, I'm the kind of person who's like, but secretly I have 14. Have 10 or less. If you don't have even 7 though, I would challenge you to go a little deeper because I think you're probably not being specific enough about each value. So you want somewhere between 7 and 10. Then again, I want you to walk away from it, take a nap. Your core values in your life audit are like a pretty big exercise. So you don't want to overdo it in that first setting. You want to sleep on it and then you want to come back to it and you want to finalize your top 10 core values. So I'm going to show you what this looks like for me, so you can get an idea of what you'll be looking for when you do this exercise for yourself. That's not it. There we go. Okay. So once again, we're back to the spreadsheet, and now I'm going to go to the tab called Core Values Brain Dump. Again, this is how I do it. You can write this by hand. You can do this in a journal. I just like being able to easily manipulate the words and move them around. So this is my 10-minute brain dump. I love love. I love cuddles. I love crocheting. I love colors and textures, creating something new, beauty. Victor, Claire, and Jason are the bartenders I mentioned from the places that I like to go. And then my 20-minute list, I literally, you can see that they're almost in alphabetical order, basically. I just looked at that list and thought, what of these words resonate with me? What did I miss from my brain dump part of the exercise? And then I literally took all these words, which is a lot, right? And you may not have this many, you may have more. It's different for everybody, and put them into groups. So I've just started asking myself, okay, if I were to take gratitude, is it the same type of value as discerning? Well, for me, gratitude and discerning all will roll up under this one faith-based value, and they actually all become one thing. It's sort of like being virtuous while discerning. And that means one thing to me. Those could mean totally different things to you. Doing something new, creating something new, newness, resourcefulness, taking risks, being yes-minded, having meaning. All of those things meant something similar to me. And so I started to group them. So what you'll see here is I came up with 10 groups. Right? And then I started to think, okay, if I were to give these names, what would they be? And then I walked away from it. I think I literally had an Irish coffee, and then I came back to it the next day. And I looked at my core values and said, okay, if I was going to set these as final values, meaning I was going to put them on a keychain that I carry around, these are as good as it gets. Then what are the groups? I just copy and pasted from the previous page, right? And what am I going to call them? So I did a little brain dump down here of what I was going to call them. I like to give my core values really like intense names, something that means something to me. So not just like virtuosity, but like devout discernment, because that's an action. I have clients who've done historical figures. They've used names of famous people. They've used phrases. It's really whatever resonates with you. That's a truly powerful value. It's way more powerful than a generic term. And then I put them in order, which is probably going to be the hardest part. I'm not going to lie. But the order matters. Knowing what matters to you and knowing the order that it matters to you is an absolute game changer, because then this becomes a waterfall. It's almost like a filter for my decisions. So if I am thinking about making a decision, but it doesn't feel in alignment with number one, which is devout discernment, which is listening for and aligning my life with God's will while living virtuously along the way, then it's not going to happen, right? Like, I run my business with integrity. That's a virtue. And so if I'm being asked to do something that's not virtuous without integrity, it doesn't happen in my business. Sorry. And I do everything I can to live that every single day. So that's the power of your core values. Okay. And that's how you're going to use them going forward. But we don't want to just stop with values. That's why these next two steps are really important. And remember, I'm going to be flying through these because I want to have time for Q&A at the end. If you guys I see some people kind of coming and going. That's totally cool. If you have questions that you want to be answered, but you have to go, type them into the chat. We're going to have a whole, transcript of the chat at the end of this process, and I'll be able to reach out to you with answers to your specific questions. But if you can stick around, I'm going to stay and do live Q&A as long as you guys want to be here. You have me all afternoon if you want. So we just did a life audit. We just talked about core values. Now we're going to talk about your future vision, which comes from your audit and your values. And then we're going to wrap up with how to make commitments that get you closer to that vision. And then I'm going to give you my freebie. So when I was in high school, I went to this retreat called Quo Vadis, which is Latin, I believe, for where are you going? And it really set me on this trajectory of thinking, I'm not a planner. I don't like to look that far in advance. I live for the day. I am like all in the moment. I try to be really present. That's what matters to me. But if you ever want to get anywhere in your life, you got to make a plan, right? And if you want to get somewhere you actually want to be, then you got to know where you're going, right? But how do we define where we're going? How do we define what it is that we want our life to look like? This is how we get one step beyond vision boards, because I don't want you guys to just slap a bunch of pictures up that look inspirational and say, this is where I'm going. We want to get there logically. So here's what happens. The life audit exercise is what gives us perspective. It gives us objective perspective. What's going well? What could be going better? And based on what's going well and what could be going better, you get to see what's important to you. You get to see what's missing, perhaps. Then the core values exercise gives us insight. So now we go one level deeper, not just into what's missing or what could be better or what I have, but what's important to me, what really matters to me at this moment in life. So creating a vision puts those two pieces together, perspective and insight, and gives us direction. Right? Objective perspective, new insight gives us a really clear direction. And the future vision piece is massively valuable because it gives us an idea of where we want to go. Is if we don't have that, then taking action and setting goals really becomes useless, right? Just to set a goal for the sake of a goal is not really all that valuable. It might feel good, right? It might feel productive, it might feel like you're getting something done, but there's a big chance that if you don't have a vision behind it, it's not going to get you anywhere meaningful. It's going to get you somewhere, but definitely, well, almost definitely somewhere that you didn't intend on going. But we want you to get where you intend on going, but we want to know how to figure out that vision in the first place, right? So if you're taking notes, this is my future vision exercise for you. So number one, what you're going to do is start with those 8 core areas of your life again: social, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, professional, intellectual, and environmental. And you're going to piece those out. And you're just going to have one section this time. So it's not going to be going well and could be better and neutral. It's going to be ideal. If this area of my life right now were in its ideal state, based on the exercise I just did, both exercises, right? Based on getting clear about where I am right now, my audit and my values, what would this need to look like to be ideal? And don't hold back. Like, I feel like in life, well, this is actually true psychologically, right? We hold ourselves back from going to a crazy place because as soon as we go to a crazy place, all of a sudden it has to be true. And we have to make that our reality. But if you use this exercise as pretend and you stretch and you see your life in its ideal form, what do they say when we're kids, right? You if you shoot for the moon, you may actually get to the moon. But if you're only shooting for the stars, you'll never get to the moon. But at least if we shoot for the moon, we can land among the stars, right? Shoot higher. Shoot for ideal. Again, do this for 5 minutes per area, set a timer, and ask yourself, if I were living my core values and my life in this area were ideal, what would be true? Cool? So I'm going to show you, and then obviously you want to reinforce this with visuals and reminders. You want to have your core values up. You want to have images of where you want to go. But to begin with, you want to get this on paper. So here's my example. Whoop, no, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Example spreadsheet. Okay, so again, this is exactly what I did. I went on to the next tab, which is future vision. Now, this is a new step that we're working into our program, which is why mine is not filled out very robustly. But all you need to do here is ask yourself, okay, let's say financial, because that one's always something that people are afraid to talk about. Let's talk about it. If I were living my life in its ideal form financially, what of these values would be true and what would be happening in my life, right? So where do I draw inspiration from these values that talk about money? Now, what's interesting is that none of these values are directly related to money if you look at them, right? Having longevity in my body and my mind, having unique and new experiences, getting to adventure. None of these are directly saying Tracy really values money. However, what do I value? Experiences. So unique and untapped, boldly and bravely seeking newness and diversity in all areas of my life, anticipating adventure, seeking variety and change of pace. Money to travel is probably the number one thing that I want to have on this list, right? Because clearly based on my values, I want to go, I want to do, I want to see, I want to explore. That means I need to be creating enough wealth in my life to do that freely. Okay, so what does that mean for my business? Maybe I need to get to a point where I can pay myself enough to like pull myself out of the daily business. Maybe that's true, right? This is just fun. You should have fun with this because creating a vision for your ideal life right now should be fun. You should be inspired by it. It should be exciting. The harder part is creating commitments, which we're going to get onto next. Because commitments are where the rubber meets the road. Commitments are where you're like, oh crap, I actually have to do this. This isn't just the fun pretending part anymore. This is where I have to get off my butt and start doing things and stay committed to this course of action, because that's the big challenge. So we did our life audit, we did our core values, we did our vision. Now we want to get clear on our commitments. Commitments are your values and your vision on steroids. Because it's one thing to have really solid values. It's another thing to carry a vision for your life. But if you aren't committed to doing the things you need to do to live by those values and create that vision, none of it really matters. This is what we call right action, not just any action, but right action, right? It all comes from your commitments. And by creating clear life commitments, we get to have a whole bunch of really awesome things in our life. Number one, you get to evaluate your options in a totally natural and seamlessly effective way. If you have ever sat up late at night thinking about a job that you should or shouldn't take, knowing deep down in your gut that this was like a horrible idea for you, but you felt like you had to do it, type yes into the chat. I cannot tell you the number of times where I've been like, maybe I should go back to Wall Street. I mean, it's right here. It's a bird in the hand. Maybe I should just take this job. But having your core values on hand and then having not only your values and your vision, but your commitments helps dictate, hey, silly, this is not the right path for you, right? And it becomes so much easier because what happens in the moment, right? We start guessing, we get distracted, we have shiny things that are distracting us, we have emotions telling us your ego wants this, your heart wants that, look at the salary, right? But if we go back to what really matters and we know what our commitments are ahead of time, we can literally remove and eliminate those distractions. I learned this from a senior executive here in Dallas who was like, listen, literally, my wife and I set for our family our core commitments at the beginning of every single year. And if I get a job offer that's paying me twice as much and look at this bonus and yada, 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 but it doesn't fit our family's commitments, it doesn't get considered. It doesn't even get the time of day. I don't lose sleep over it. We don't talk about it because it doesn't fit what we've already decided as a family we're committed to. Now, are there some times in life where you want to reevaluate? Of course, when crazy things in the world change, your values and your commitments probably change. However, most of the time, for most of us, when we're considering a new job or considering a path or considering a pivot, our values and our commitments and our vision are what need to come into play, not the momentary feelings about what society or everybody else would do or what this looks like to them. And what this does is create this really wonderful foundation for a career and a life where you don't have to feel like you're sacrificing anything that truly matters to you. That's what we're getting at here, right? If your life audit is telling you the truth and giving you perspective, if your core values are speaking to that which matters to you right now the most, and if your vision for your life is driven from those two things, then the commitments that we draw from those exercises are going to tell you the minimum viable things you need in life to feel like you're thriving. They're not going to be wrong. You don't have to question them. That's the best part. You can literally lean on them and use them consistently. And this is how we teach our clients to do this. This is what I do in my own life. So if you want to create commitments, this is exactly how you do it. If you're taking notes, write down these steps. So what we're trying to do is go from values to vision to commitments. The way I like to do this is take my vision and break it up into commitments based on time. So is this something that I can live with a daily commitment? Is this something that I can live with a weekly commitment? Is this something I live with a monthly commitment? Or is this more of like an annual ethos driven like commitment for this year, right? And then I record my non-negotiable items. And then I record my necessary items to realize my vision. So your non-negotiable items are values driven. Your necessary items, right, are driven by your vision. And you make a commitments list. This is really, really fun, really fun. I might be exaggerating about that because it's serious work, but it's liberating because at the end of it, you're going to have a list of everything that you want to accomplish all in one place, which is the beauty of this, right? And you're going to know what's negotiable and non-negotiable based on this list. Okay. So I have my commitments here, or my values, more or less, the meaning of those values. And then what could I commit to daily, weekly, monthly, and annually to live these values? Well, I'm doing a Bible in a Year podcast. Now, friends, do I listen to this podcast every single day religiously? The answer to that is no. But if I skip a day, do I go back to it the next day? Yes, because this is a commitment I've made to myself that by the end of the year, I'm going to have read the Bible. I've never done that. I'm very excited about it, but I'm going to do it through this podcast and I'm going to journal. I'm going to pray and be a better version of myself, right? But if I miss a day, not all is lost, right? This is how we get back on track with our commitments. So that's the difference between this and resolutions. Resolutions are like, oh, la-di-da, this is a thing that I think I want. Rarely driven by a value. These commitments are driven by the vision you have for your ideal life and career. So they're powerful, okay? Now, I'm going to wrap up today. Now that you've seen all the behind the scenes of Tracy's life and you know everything driving me, I'm going to wrap up with a quick call to action and a bunch of gratitude for Nifty. So this has been fun. I hope you guys have had a good time. We're going to do Q&A. Please start thinking of your questions and dropping them into the chat. But before we do that, I do have a quick call to action for you, meaning I like to make sure you get something out of this and you move this process forward. This isn't just like a fun hour we spent on a webinar. So today I taught you the following, right? How to go from stuck to unstoppable in your career, a proven method for discovering your true professional potential. Remember that now, nature, nurture, the step-by-step formula, now plus nature plus nurture to figure out your niche. And then of course, how to get laser focused in clarity so you can achieve more and more sustainable success. But I don't want you to just let today be another webinar you watched. I want you to be moved to take action. And whether you take action with us is fine. If you resonate with me and how I do this, happy days, let's chat, right? But if you don't, then I recommend you find somebody that you do resonate with. And the way that you can find a good coach is you want to be looking for the following things. You can call this person a coach, an advisor, an instructor, a mentor, whatever. We call our coaches Thrive Guides because they help our clients thrive. A good coach is going to help you play up your strengths and reframe your weaknesses. They're going to help you rewrite any limiting beliefs like the imposter syndrome, Nicole, help you rewrite any limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck despite all the hard work that I know you're putting in. If you're here, I know you're trying. I know you're seeking resources, but a good coach is going to help you leverage those things and teach you tools and strategies to build the career and the life of your dreams. And maybe most importantly, to help you stay accountable. I literally enrolled a woman in our core program a couple weeks ago, and she was like, I've tried these things. I've bought programs in the past, but the one thing missing was accountability. It got too hard to ask myself these really deep questions. I need you asking them to me, and I need you holding me accountable to give you answers. And I said, that's exactly what we do. So here's how I can help you. This is my freebie that I want to give you guys today. It is 50 minutes, AKA 1 human hour of my time. I have set aside time for you guys on my calendar. So this is not my team, it is me. And we can speak personally about what's going on in your career. And these are specifically for those of you who are looking for a path forward and potentially want to learn more about the work that we do and the programs that we have. Whatever you're going through in your career, I know your challenges. I've seen them. I've taken over 500 of these clarity calls to date, believe it or not. So I know your story, hopefully, and I have some examples of how we can help, or at the very least, get you to some good resources. So again, this is a free session. We're going to help you discover, I will help you discover what's keeping you stuck. So what's the mechanism that's not working? Determine the next best step. So if that's working with us, great. We'll explore what that looks like. If it's not, I'll make sure to do my best to get you to the right resources to see who else can help and decide if we're a good fit to work together if that's the case. One of the exciting things that Levi mentioned is that we are updating everything in our business right now. So we've taken our core programming and updated it. It's the best it's ever been. And we're relaunching a new cohort on April 12th. So if you're interested in learning more about that start date, we can talk about that. And again, this call is completely free. So if you want to book that, if you're a QR coder, it's all right, Kate. We'll give you the, if you want to pop on before you have to leave and grab this QR code, if you want a slot on my calendar, you can do that. Or if you are the type who likes to type this out, go to go.onewhothrives.com, onewhothrives.com/clarity call LP with dashes in between each word. So clarity call LP. If you want to connect with me, I'm all about LinkedIn. I don't hang out really anywhere else on the interwebs. I don't know. I was a child of Facebook, but I really can't stand it anymore. So I don't hang out there. I mostly hang out on LinkedIn. But again, this is for any of you who are interested in going deeper, want to learn about our programs, want to get some insight directly from me, have additional questions. Maybe you have to hop today and we can't stick around for Q&A. Thank you so much, Nifty, for having me. I'm going to leave this screen up while we do Q&A in case anybody wants to grab a call. Love that you guys were here. I know that your time is precious, so thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. If you have to go, I can't wait to talk to you another time, but if you can stick around and you have some questions for little old me, I will happily answer them. Levi, do you have any leading questions since this is something you've gone through yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. So yeah, mine's a little, I mean, it started, in college. I didn't know what to go to college for. I just thought that I should go, and, started out with something that I felt like I might have, been good at or enjoyed, but with no real direction and nobody really to give me direction. So I kind of went through some of these processes, and, sometimes you do things like you did, Tracy, for a couple of years, and then you're like, this just isn't me. And for one reason or the other, I started out as a mechanical engineer. I love to design things. Oh man, I sucked at math. I'm just so bad at it. So that for me, I was like, okay. And I, similar process, not as defined and clear as yours, but I was like, what do I like about what I'm doing? And then what's just clearly not it for me? And for me, it was the design. And it's like, okay, how can I design without, constraints or without math or without rules or physics or whatever, and so that led to the next step. And unfortunately for me, it took a few years, but it just adds to your experience, right? So I loved you sharing your experience, and some of that time on Wall Street really led you to this is great for a lot of reasons, but just not a good fit, and how to move on from there, because it is scary, and that's
it's super scary.
It's scary, whether you've got, people depending on you or not. It's, I've recently made some career choices over the last couple of years too, just to dive in full with what we do over here at Nifty. And it's been terrific because it is freeing. It is feeling much more like yourself. So I would encourage anybody who has that kind of, and you feel it, right, Tracy, that you feel it in your gut. You're just like, something doesn't fit or something doesn't right. It doesn't feel right. So the culture, whether it's the culture or just a personal thing, it's,
One of the guys on my team who's actually a former client and now working on the marketing side with us, his name is Ian. The other day, he said to me, if you can't trust that feeling, what you just said, right? There's just, you feel something is off. It's like, if you can't trust that, if you can't listen to that, what can you listen to?
Yeah.
What's more, the other thing too, I think people forget is our intuition feels, like a woo woo flighty thing, like, oh, I listen to my intuition or whatever. Your intuition has actually been built over time based on how you've experienced the world and the lessons
Right.
that you've learned. So our intuition is actually prompting us to lean on experiences we've already had and information we've already consumed and make a better next decision. It's not there to be ignored. And it's also not there arbitrarily. It's there because we're designed to learn from the experiences that we've had and to make better decisions with that information going forward. That's all your intuition is, really, is the hard wiring inside of your brain and your body that's using that collective knowledge to help you make the next best choice. So
Yeah,
we don't
absolutely.
listen, right? We're missing out on this huge body of information that we have done the legwork to earn. Like if
Right.
you've tripped a million times, man, listen to your gut going, don't step on that thing that makes you trip this time, like it. But we do that in our career so readily,
Mhm.
unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the old Thomas Edison quote, right? I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And it's
Yeah.
so true. And all of those failures, the freedom to fail, things like that, which is a big cultural movement happening now. But sometimes in the past, and even in certain people's jobs, that they don't have as much of a freedom to fail, but you always have a choice, right? And those experiences lead to that feeling, that instinct, that experience that you're talking about. That helps with that next decision. And if you can't trust yourself and your gut and you can't listen to yourself, who can you listen to? Right. So I think
Mm.
it's so important to, get to a place, whether, and it takes help. It takes a village. I didn't get to a place of self-awareness without a ton of help and a ton of mistakes and people telling me, you know what, you're not paying attention to what is right. And it sometimes it takes a good friend or a good reminder. So that's why I love when you shared about really sitting down and listing all those things that are important to you, because a big piece of that might be family and friends and people that know you well. It's I would encourage people to surround themselves with that, because those people will also point out things to you that say, hey, this, it's clear that you need to change, or it's clear that you're really good at this thing over here that you're not even doing, and there might be an opportunity to explore that.
You bring up a really great point, Levi, which is today we've talked about a lot of strategies you can do on your own that were designed as individual exercises. So if you're going to go spend an hour, start with that, but it is not where you want to end. I mean, I wrote a book. I've had people tell me I get all the way to this part, but I need insight from other people. And it's the book and the process are designed to gather insight from others, not to just lean on your own understanding. Because that's the collective knowledge of the people around you who see you when you're at your best, and they see past your own mental blockers about your own strengths. Because what do we do, right? If you're good at something and it comes naturally and easily to you, you will naturally undervalue that thing
Right.
because it's simple, it's easy. Doesn't everybody do this? Every time I speak, the number one thing I get back as far as feedback is my energy level.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like, doesn't everybody show up with this amount of energy to speak? That's beyond my understanding, right? But they don't. They don't. And the more I get this feedback, the more I realize what I do and the way I do it is special. But would I ever have assumed that my energy level was anything but the standard for a speaker on a webinar? Absolutely not, right? So that's a really great example of the feedback you get from others, taking that into
Yeah.
account and asking yourself, what does that mean about me? How does that set me apart? How does that make me unique in this area? And then you get to use those things to advertise yourself, right? So if I'm trying to get booked as a speaker, guess what the number one thing that I'm going to say is? Energetic. And I'm
Yeah.
going to have quote, 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 quote of all these people saying, this is the best webinar ever. This is the most energy I've ever seen, things like that, that
Yeah.
really speak to that, because it's so much more powerful coming from them than it is coming from me. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can use the same idea to articulate and advocate for yourself in your own career without having to be selling yourself, but with being honest, right, about what your value is and how that's unique.
Well, and by recognizing that and saying those things and putting it out there that says, I am high energy. This is how, I get, kind of get turned on and have great engaging discussions. By putting that out there and talking about yourself in that way and advertising in that way, you're drawing an audience that is looking for that, right? So
Yeah,
then they become more engaged, which,
there you go.
in turn makes you more engaged, and it just creates lively discussions. I've always told my teams, ideas come from everywhere. So don't be afraid to have conversations. Don't be afraid to, bring up new things. So that's always a great place. We've got a couple of questions in Q&A. So I'll
Yay!
bring those up for you here.
Bring it on.
Uh, it looks like, let's see here. We've got,
I
oh,
can't see the
thank
Q&A,
you.
so I'll
Yep.
rely on you.
And yeah, I'll bring them out to you. But we got Holly, who just was really saying thank you so much for the time you took to, put your spreadsheet examples up there, because, you know, she, and I'm sure many others, like, and myself too, are, we're visual learners. So seeing that example, that personal example, and, that takes a lot of, you are kind of, showing a lot of yourself there. So we really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing with that. So she just wanted to pop on here and say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
That's lovely. Thank
Sydney
you.
says that, I feel like I'm in a quarter life crisis. I think we've all been there. I'm curious on your thoughts on if people right now could be needing a career change, or if it's the pandemic related, and the pandemic wall that's hitting hard. She's asking, do I need a career change, or is it a knee jerk reaction for what is hopefully
Mm.
a temporary pandemic blocker?
Ooh, what a nice,
Good
thank
question.
you for this question. This is great. So globally, let me just say the pandemic, my opinion here, and it's not like a controversial one. It's just, I think, a philosophical one. Um, the pandemic to me is nothing more than a reminder that life is uncertain and will change without our control, period. Right. So this time it just so happened that we all experienced that same change at once. Right. But what's going to happen in your life is that situations and circumstances are going to change outside of your control. What does that mean? We can either fight that or we can accept it. If we fight it, then we're going to live our whole life sort of feeling like we need to be in control constantly. If we can appreciate it, then we can work with it. And if you're going to work with it, then you need a process to go back to make the next best decision, no matter what change you're experiencing.
Hmm.
Okay. So, pandemic wise, have things changed economically? Yes. Have things changed in the job market? Absolutely. Right. But there are still jobs. And you know who are getting the jobs? The people with the most clarity. You know who's not getting the jobs? The people just reaching for a job. Okay. So there's that. I would I would argue, well, I would just suggest to answer this question that if you've been having these doubts and questions for longer than a year, that's a good sign that it's not just pandemic related. And if you've been having these doubts since the pandemic began, maybe that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Philosophically speaking, to show you where you are actually out of alignment, to almost put a flashlight on this one area of your life and say, hey, without the trappings of your office and without all the fun, like, so let's say you work at Google. What is the best part about working at Google? It's the on-campus culture. It's the food. It's the nap pods. It's the creative spaces. It's the bikes. It's the campus, right? I've heard this consistently. So if you love working at Google because you love being there, and now for the last year, you haven't been able to go on campus and you don't like your job, that's a good sign that you're not in the wrong place, but you are leaving something on the table, right? You're leaving potential to be explored. You're holding yourself back from the fullness of where you could be thriving, right? Because our environment, our work environment is just one piece of the puzzle of our ideal working experience. The people are another piece, the job you do, the role and responsibilities, that's another piece, the company's culture and mission, that's another piece, how it aligns with your values, that's another piece, right? And to be thriving, we want to be nailing it in all of those areas, not just one. So to get to the root of your question, you want to start where we started today. It's getting clear on what's going on in your life, and then getting absolutely deck level on what matters to you right now. And then look at your job and ask yourself, where is this out of alignment? We actually have a product. I think it's $27 called our career alignment scorecard. And Sydney, if you're interested, I can send you a link and you could check that out if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. But what it does is walk you through this core value creation exercise, and then actually helps you compare your current role against the values that you say matter to you, and helps you see literally from a direct pro con, almost like a math perspective, what's going well and what could be going better. And are you out of alignment on just one value, but it happens to be the biggest one you have? Are you out of alignment on all of your top 5? Are you mixed? And that's where the confusion is coming from. So when I get confused and I don't know what to do, I try to go back to facts and data. What do I know for certain? And the only way to figure those things out objectively is to go through a process that gets objective answers out of you, or to engage with someone who can help pull those answers out of you, right? Like Levi was saying, to find an advisor, to find help in this area. So if you want to go deeper, I would recommend you book a call on this link that's on the screen, because I can certainly walk you through this. And it sounds like if you're in a quarter life crisis, then you're a woman after my heart, because that's what happened to me when I was 25. And that's why I ended up getting myself to the point where I up and quit a job without a job, spent my last dime going around the world, couch surfing. Like, I did all the things your parents are like, don't do. And it was really hard. It's the hard route to go. The way we can put ourselves in the driver's seat to get ahead of that hard route is by knowing what these values and commitments are in advance. So you can make, like I said, the next best decision. What a great question.
Yeah, that really is good.
It's going to be a unique answer for everybody, but I don't think it's a question to be ignored just because it's circumstantial. I think the circumstances are actually poking at something that may have been out of alignment the whole time, but may have been masked by better external circumstances, if that made sense.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how, some of these circumstances really give us the chance to kind of zoom in and say, okay, once we peel out all the, the things about the workplace, the fancy stuff, the distracting things, and we get to the core of what we do, isn't it great to see, do I still like this? Does it still feel right without all the fluffy extra things, or what am I missing? I really love this, but without this piece, I don't feel whole. So I can't wait to get back and share that or change up how it goes. Tracy, another question we've had here, from a couple people is, and we've said the recording is going to be available. We usually send that out in a couple of days to everyone who's attended. It'll also be available on the Nifty Method YouTube page. And we can find that through our socials and through our website at niftymethod.com as well. But people are also asking about some of the spreadsheets you shared, as well as the PowerPoint that you shared today. Is that available as a resource, and how might they be able to, as a template, maybe not your personal answers, but
yeah,
could they, is there a way they can should they schedule a call with you to kind of discuss that, or is that something that you can make available after the
yeah, what a good question. So what I can do is I changed up these slides. I try to do this for every group that I'm working with to make them really specific. So these don't live online yet, but what I can do is just set up a quick landing page where you can download the slides. The spreadsheet, I never thought anybody would actually want, but I use, and every time I show it in a webinar, people want it. So I'll do that too.
I think it'd be great as a template, right? Like a starting place to say, okay, help me remember the steps, or what are the questions I should ask? What are the timelines?
I love that. So actually there is a smaller version of the spreadsheet that is much more beautiful than this and is actually highly designed. That's the career alignment scorecard little mini program that I talked about. It's $27. It's on our website. So if you, if you go to, if you just Google Tracy Timm, or nth degree, NTHDEGREE, and career alignment scorecard, you'll find it. And what I can do is actually also send that out to Nifty so that you can have a link to that, and it's super easy. I recorded videos to walk you through it. You have access to the spreadsheet. It's a Google sheet. So it's really easy to manipulate. All the tabs are already there. So yeah, let's do that. I'll send that link to you, Levi, and then we can make that available to the
absolutely
the registrants. Yeah. Holly, does that work? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd love to get that starting place. And I think that's really good. And I know I spend a lot of time on the Googles looking for templates and things like this, of like, how are other people doing it? And, for whatever the challenge is. So I think that's
love that. Yeah. And I find that's just so easy. It's so much easier in a spreadsheet for me, because you can just manipulate words and move them around. And a lot of people like to handwrite it, but like, I'm just so much more of a, like, let me put all these in buckets, and it would take way longer if you didn't do it in a spreadsheet. So I'm all about efficiency.
I'm a whiteboard, but then I'm like, oh crap, now I got to type all this in somewhere. So I
know, right? You know how many pictures on my phone I have of whiteboard sessions?
Yeah.
Like, you can't turn this into a PDF. But thus the creative brain, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Sharita, I'm so glad you're still here. You're so welcome. You guys, this has been wonderful. If anybody else has questions, we're going to make all these resources available to you. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. If anything's paid, it's pretty cheap, but the programs that we have are an investment. So if you are curious about them, do book that strategy call so we can talk about timing and pricing and who they're for, who they're not for. But we're also going to be putting out a bunch of new fun digital uh, assets that are also going to give you a lot more information as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay.
Okay. Well, we're coming in on, kind of our time here, but Tracy, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Thank you to everyone who attended for your great conversation, your involvement, your energy, your questions. It really does make these a lot of fun to do. Hopefully you've gotten some resources and a place to start. Please reach out to Tracy. This is an amazing opportunity to get some free time with her to say, hey, just, kind of give me some pointers, show me where to start. I can attest Tracy is not short on resources at all. There is a lot of information on her websites and everything that she's done, the books, everything. So, like I said earlier in the call today, fantastic entrepreneur, career clarity expert, professional speaker, author. She's just all over the place and doing all kinds of stuff. So, we really appreciate her taking out a significant chunk of time today to spend with us and share some of these great things. So.
You got it.
You can always reach out to her with more questions. Thanks everybody. Again, I'm Levi with Nifty Method. It's been great hosting you, Tracy, and everyone else. Thanks again for your conversation.
Yeah. Have a great day, you guys. I can't wait to hear from you and connect with you. And thank you so much for being here.